The hospital station hung in space like a broken promise. Through the scratched windows, you could see the moon below, still smoking from last week's bombardment. Inside, the air smelled like disinfectant and desperation. Nurse Tyler Hayes had been working the overflow ward for 6 months now. This was where they put the patients nobody wanted to deal with. The ones whose governments wouldn't pay the premium fees. The prisoners who'd be sent back to cells once they healed. The deserters who'd abandoned their posts. The mistakes. It was Tuesday night, which meant the ward was half empty. Most of the serious casualties went to the main facility where the real doctors worked. Tyler didn't mind. He'd volunteered for this assignment. Someone had to care for the forgotten ones. The alarm blared at 2,300 hours. Incoming wounded. Tyler glanced up from his paperwork as the medical transport gurney rushed past his station. He caught a glimpse of blue blood splattered across the floor. His stomach tightened. The orderlies wheeled the patient into the corner bay. The one with the faulty climate control that nobody had bothered fixing. Tyler stood up, grabbing his medical scanner, but Dr. Velkath blocked his path. "Don't bother," the Velkorian physician said, his translator crackling. "That one's a Thoraxian." Tyler looked past him. The creature on the gurney was massive, easily 8 feet long. Thick plates of natural armor covered most of its body, dark green and scarred from years of combat. Forearms hung limp. Multiple eyes stared at the ceiling, unfocused. Blood pooled beneath the gurney, that strange phosphorescent blue that Thoraxian blood always was. "He's bleeding out," Tyler said. "He's Dominion," Dr. Velkath replied coldly. "Let their own people deal with him." The doctor walked away. Tyler stood there, scanner in hand, watching the Thoraxian's chest plates rise and fall irregularly. He'd seen enough trauma to know what dying looked like. An hour passed. Tyler made his rounds, checking on the Grathian deserter who still wouldn't speak. He changed bandages on a merchant pilot who'd crashed in the wrong sector. He administered pain medication to a young refugee whose parents hadn't survived the evacuation. The whole time he could hear the Thoraxian breathing. That wet, rattling sound that meant fluid in the lungs. Or whatever Thoraxians had instead of lungs. 2 hours. Tyler filed reports, restocked supplies, did everything he was supposed to do. 3 nurses passed through the ward. All of them looked at the Thoraxian. None of them stopped. He pulled up the patient file on his tablet. The Thoraxian's name was Vector. Shock Trooper 3rd Class. Found unconscious in a bombed-out trench. Shrapnel wounds to 3 major organs. The medical AI estimated he had maybe 4 hours left without treatment. 7 staff members had already declined to treat him. The reasons varied. Enemy combatant. Outside my specialty. Cultural concerns. One nurse had simply written no in the refusal box. Tyler had read the casualty reports. He knew what Thoraxian shock troopers did. They were the ones who broke through defensive lines. The ones who didn't take prisoners. There were stories about entire colonies wiped out by Thoraxian assault teams. His own cousin had died on Outpost 7 when Thoraxian forces overran the garrison. 3 hours. The Thoraxian's breathing had gotten worse. One of his eyes had stopped moving. Tyler could see the exact moment when the creature realized he was dying. There was something horribly human about the way fear crossed those alien features. Tyler closed his eyes and thought about his first day of medical school. The instructor had made them memorize the oath. All of it. Not just the easy parts about doing no harm but the hard parts too. The parts about treating everyone equally. About not letting personal feelings interfere with care. "We take care of the sick," Professor Williams had said. "Not the deserving sick. Not the worthy sick. Just the sick. Because the moment you start deciding who deserves your help, you stop being a healer." Tyler grabbed his medical kit. His hands were shaking slightly as he walked across the ward. The other patients watched him. The Grathian deserter sat up in his bed. The young refugee peeked out from behind her blanket. Vector's eyes tracked him as he approached. Those alien eyes, so different from human ones, but somehow conveying the same message. The same fear. The same desperate hope that maybe, possibly, someone would help. Tyler knelt beside the gurney. The floor was slick with blue blood. He activated his scanner, watching the readings flicker across the screen. 3 pieces of shrapnel. 2 near vital organs, one already causing internal bleeding. The wounds were infected with something the scanner didn't recognize. He looked up at Vector. The Thoraxian's mandibles were trembling. Probably shock setting in. Those multiple eyes fixed on Tyler's face, waiting for the blow. Waiting for the mockery. Waiting for death. Tyler had seen that look before. On human faces, on alien faces. on the faces of people who'd given up hope. He reached out slowly and placed his hand on the Thoraxian's armored shoulder. The plates were cold hard. But underneath, he could feel the rapid flutter of whatever passed for a heartbeat in Thoraxian physiology. "You're safe now," Tyler said quietly. The words felt inadequate, stupid even, but they were all he had. Vector's mandibles stopped trembling. One of his hands twitched as if reaching for something. His eyes focused on Tyler's face with an intensity that made the nurse uncomfortable. Tyler pulled out his surgical kit and got to work. He didn't have time to wonder if he was doing the right thing. The Thoraxian was dying, and that was all that mattered. Tyler's hands moved quickly, pulling out the first piece of shrapnel. It was lodged deep in Vector's side, right where the armor plates separated. The metal fragment was still hot, probably from an energy weapon. Blue blood spurted out as he removed it, and Tyler immediately applied pressure with a gel pack. "Easy," he murmured, more to himself than to Vector. "I've got you." The surgical bay's door hissed open. Dr. Velkath stood in the doorway, his face twisted in something between anger and disbelief. "Nurse Hayes, what do you think you're doing?" Tyler didn't look up. He was working on the second piece of shrapnel, this one buried near what he assumed was Vector's primary circulatory pump. "My job, Doctor. That creature is Dominion military. He's killed Coalition personnel. Probably dozens of them." Dr. Velkath's voice rose. "You're violating station protocol." "Actually, I'm following the medical charter." Tyler finally glanced up. Article 7, Section 3. All sentient beings have the right to emergency medical care regardless of political affiliation or military status. Earth insisted on that clause when we joined the coalition. Remember? The doctor's face darkened. "I'm filing a formal complaint. Commander Holt will hear about this." "Good," Tyler said calmly. "Tell her I'm in Base 6 if she needs me." Dr. Velkath stormed out. Tyler went back to work. The second piece came out easier than the first. He cleaned the wound, applied synthetic tissue regenerator, and moved to the third injury. This one was the worst, deep in the chest cavity where several major vessels converged. His hands were steady now. This was familiar territory. Blood was blood, whether it was red or blue. Trauma was trauma. Suffering was universal. 2 hours later, Tyler had extracted all the shrapnel and stabilized the major bleeds. He set up in 4-line with fluids that the medical database suggested were compatible with Thoraxian biology. Not perfect, but enough to keep Vector alive until morning when they could synthesize something better. Vector hadn't made a sound the entire time. Not a cry, not a whimper. Just those eyes watching Tyler's every move with an intensity that was almost uncomfortable. As Tyler cleaned up the surgical tools, Vector's mandibles clicked together. The sound was soft, rhythmic. The translator on Tyler's wrist beeped, processing the language. "Why?" The word came out rough, mechanical through the translator. Tyler paused. "Why what? Why help?" Vector's largest eyes focused directly on him. "I am enemy. I have killed your kind." Tyler sat down on the stool beside the gurney. He was exhausted. His scrubs were covered in blue blood. He needed coffee, sleep, and probably a shower in that order. "Because you needed help," he said simply. The mandibles clicked again. "This makes no sense. In war, weak are eliminated. Wounded are burden. My own unit left me. This is proper. This is survival. That's not how we do things. How you do things is foolish." But there was no anger in Vector's translated voice. Just confusion. Deep, profound confusion. Tyler rubbed his eyes. How do you explain humanity to an alien species that saw mercy as weakness? He thought about his training, about history classes back on Earth, about all the mistakes his species had made before finally learning some hard lessons. "Look, my people fought each other for thousands of years," Tyler began. "Really brutal stuff. We bombed cities. We burned crops. We did terrible things to prisoners. And you know what we learned? That cruelty doesn't end wars. It just makes them last longer." Vector listened, his breathing slightly steadier now. A few hundred years ago, some humans decided to make rules. Rules about how to fight wars. Sounds crazy, right? But one of the big rules was about treating wounded enemies. Because they figured out something important. Tyler leaned forward. Today's enemy might be tomorrow's ally. Today's soldier is somebody's son or daughter. And if you treat captured enemies like garbage, they'll fight to the death rather than surrender. Which means more of your own people die. Practical reasoning, Vector said. Strategic. Sure, but it's more than that. Tyler struggled to find the right words. We also just decided that some things matter more than winning. That there's a difference between defeating an enemy and being cruel to them. That just because someone fights for the other side doesn't mean they stop being a person. The translator was quiet for a long moment. Then Vector spoke again. Person. I'm not person. I am Thraxian. You are human. Different. You think. You feel pain. You were scared when you thought you were dying. Tyler met those alien eyes. That makes you a person to me. A strange sound came from Vector, something the translator couldn't process. It might have been laughter or crying or something completely alien that humans didn't have a word for. My people have fought for 300 cycles, Vector said quietly. We believe universe is hostile. That only strong survive. That mercy is weakness that gets you killed. He paused. Perhaps we are wrong. Tyler stood up, checking the monitors one last time. Vector's vital signs were stabilizing. He'd need more treatment, proper surgery, maybe some organ reconstruction. But he'd live through the night. Get some rest, Tyler said. We'll do more in the morning. As he turned to leave, Vector's voice stopped him. Nurse Tyler. In my culture, life debt is sacred. You gave me life when none other would. This debt cannot be repaid. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. Tyler walked back to his desk, sitting down heavily in his chair. The other patients were quiet, but he could feel them watching. The Grathian deserter in bed 3. The merchant pilot in bed 7. The young refugee girl in bed 12. They'd all seen what happened. The refugee girl, maybe 8 years old in human years, called out softly. Nurse Tyler? Are you going to get in trouble? He smiled at her, trying to look reassuring. Maybe. But that's okay. Why did you help him? Everyone says Thraxians are monsters. Tyler thought about that. Because monsters don't bleed and feel scared. Monsters don't have names. That's Vector over there, and he's a living being who needed help. That's all I needed to know. The girl nodded slowly, processing this information with the seriousness that children bring to big ideas. The rest of the night shift passed quietly. Tyler filed his reports, carefully documenting every procedure. He knew Dr. Velkath would challenge everything, so he made sure his notes were thorough and cited every relevant medical regulation. Around 0400 hours, he checked on Vector again. The Thraxian appeared to be sleeping, his breathing deep and regular now. The blue blood had stopped seeping from his wounds. Tyler allowed himself a small moment of satisfaction. This was why he'd become a nurse. Not for the easy days or the grateful patients. For moments like this, when he could look at someone who'd been given up for dead and know that they'd see another sunrise. Even if that someone was supposed to be his enemy. By morning, everyone on the station knew what Tyler had done. He grabbed coffee from the dispenser in the break room and felt the conversation die the moment he walked in. 3 nurses stared at him. 2 looked away. One, a younger guy named Kevin from the main ward, just shook his head and left. Tyler sipped his coffee. It tasted like burnt plastic, same as always. Nurse Rachel Park sat down across from him. She'd been on the station longer than anyone, had seen 3 tours of duty. You've got guts, I'll give you that, she said quietly. But you've also got a target on your back now. I was just doing my job. Your job doesn't include treating enemy combatants who've probably killed our people. Rachel leaned forward. Look, I get it. I understand the principle. But principles don't matter when command decides you're a security risk. Tyler didn't argue. She wasn't wrong. He'd known the consequences when he'd made his choice. He finished his coffee and headed back to the overflow ward for the morning shift. Vector was awake. His eyes tracked Tyler as he approached with the medication cart. The Thraxian's color was better, that blue tint less pale than yesterday. The monitors showed improvement across the board. How are you feeling? Tyler asked, scanning the readouts. Pain is manageable. Confusion is not. Vector's mandibles clicked softly. Last night I dreamed. In my dream, my commander asked why I still lived. I had no answer that made sense. Tyler administered a dose of antibiotics, adjusted for Thraxian metabolism. You lived because someone decided you deserved to live. That's the only answer you need. But I am enemy. Right now you're a patient. That's all that matters in this room. The door slid open. 2 officers in coalition military uniforms stepped inside. Behind them came Commander Jessica Holt herself. She was human, tall, with iron-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Nurse Hayes. A word. Tyler followed her to the small office at the end of the ward. The 2 officers stood outside, blocking the door. Not a good sign. Commander Holt sat on the edge of the desk. Dr. Velkath filed a formal complaint. He wants you suspended pending investigation. Security wants to question you about possible collaboration with enemy forces. And I've got 3 senators demanding to know why we're providing premium care to Dominion military. Tyler stood at attention waiting. So, Holt continued, want to tell me why you decided to make my life complicated? The patient was dying. No one else would treat him. I took an oath. Tyler kept his voice steady. I'd do it again. Something flickered in Holt's expression. Might have been respect. Might have been annoyance. Hard to tell. That Thraxian in there has killed coalition personnel. I've seen the combat reports from his unit. They don't take prisoners. They don't show mercy. Why should we show him any? Because we're not them, Tyler said simply. Because the moment we start acting like them, we become them. And because... He paused, choosing his words carefully, because maybe if we show there's another way, eventually they'll learn it too. Holt was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up. You're not suspended. But you're now officially assigned to that Thraxian as his primary care provider. Anything happens to him, anything at all, it's on you. Understood. Yes, ma'am. And Hayes? Next time you want to start a diplomatic incident, give me a heads up first. She almost smiled. Dismissed. Over the next week, something strange happened. Vector started talking. Not about military secrets or tactical information, though intelligence officers showed up daily hoping for that. He talked about culture. About Thraxian society. About why his people fought the way they did. We are taught from hatching that universe is cruel, Vector explained one afternoon while Tyler changed his bandages. That only strong survive. Weak are culled. Wounded are abandoned. This is natural order. Sounds lonely, Tyler said. Lonely? The translator struggled with the word. We do not have this concept. We have collective. We have duty. We have hierarchy. But no friendship? No compassion. Vector's mandibles twitched. These are weaknesses. They make you vulnerable. They make you hesitate in combat. Tyler finished securing the bandage. And yet you're still alive because someone chose compassion over combat logic. Doesn't that tell you something? The Thraxian had no answer to that. The other patients in the ward watched these conversations with fascination. The Grathian deserter, who Tyler had learned was named Peck, started speaking again for the first time in weeks. He asked Tyler for help with tremors in his hands, psychosomatic trauma from whatever had made him abandon his post. The young refugee girl Mira began spending time near Vector's bed. At first, Tyler worried about putting a child near a trained killer. But Vector was surprisingly gentle with her. He'd answer her questions about his homeworld, about what Thraxian children learned in school, about whether his species had families. We have spawning clusters, Vector explained to her one day. Many eggs, many offspring. Most do not survive training. This is proper. Mira looked horrified. That's sad. It is efficient. It's still sad. Tyler watched Vector process this. The idea that efficiency and sadness could coexist seemed to genuinely confuse him. By the second week, something unexpected started happening. 2 more Dominion soldiers were captured in a skirmish near the 4th moon. Both were wounded. Both specifically requested transport to the human hospital. Word had spread somehow. The station that showed mercy. Dr. Velkath refused to treat them. 3 other doctors declined. Tyler ended up with both patients in his ward. A Thraxian scout and a Krell logistics officer. Both looked at Vector with something like awe. You live, the scout said in his own language. They said humans show mercy, but we did not believe. Believe it, Vector replied. These humans are different. They heal enemies. They do not understand this is illogical. Tyler smiled as he checked the scout's injuries. Oh, we understand it's illogical. We just decided logic isn't everything. News of the ward spread through the station. Some humans supported Tyler, citing Earth's medical traditions and the importance of maintaining ethical standards even during war. Others saw him as naive at best, traitorous at worst. Someone spray-painted Dominion Lover on his quarters door. Rachel Park started helping him with the increased patient load. Don't get any ideas, she said gruffly. I still think you're crazy. But if we're doing this, we're doing it right. More staff trickled in. A human physician named Dr. Brooks volunteered to supervise the complex cases. A Teltian nurse named Pyrrha offered to help with the non-Dominion patients so Tyler could focus on the controversial ones. The overflow ward, once the forgotten corner of the station, became something else entirely. A place where the rules were different. Where yesterday's enemy could become today's patient. Where healing mattered more than politics. Commander Holt visited regularly now, always watching, always evaluating. Tyler suspected she was documenting everything. Whether for a court-martial or a commendation he couldn't tell. Late one night, Tyler found Vector staring out the viewport at the stars. The Thoraxian had healed enough to walk now, though he still moved carefully. "What are you thinking about?" Tyler asked. "Home. Battle. Purpose." Vector's voice was quieter than usual. "I was soldier. I knew my function. Now I do not know what I am." "You're someone who's learning there's more to life than fighting." "Perhaps." Vector turned to face him. "But what does that make me? Not Thoraxian anymore. Not human. Something between. Something broken." "Not broken," Tyler said firmly. "Just changing. And that's the hardest thing anyone can do." 3 weeks after Tyler first whispered those words, Vector could walk without assistance. His wounds had closed. The blue tint of his armor plates had returned to their natural dark green. By all medical standards, he was ready for discharge. Tyler filed the paperwork on a Thursday morning. Standard protocol required transferring recovered enemy combatants to the POW facility on Delta Station. Maximum security, minimal contact, standard interrogation procedures. Vector would spend the rest of the war in a cell. But Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that sending Vector there would waste something important. Something that had started in this little overflow ward. He sat at his desk, staring at the transfer forms. Rachel walked by, glanced at his screen and stopped. "You haven't submitted those yet." "No. Tyler, you have to. It's not optional." "What if there was another option?" Tyler looked up at her. "What if we let him choose?" Rachel laughed, then realized he was serious. "You can't be. Tyler, he's a prisoner of war. You can't just ask him where he wants to go. That's insane." "Is it? We let refugees choose asylum. We let defectors request protection. Why not POWs?" "Because he's not a defector. He's an enemy soldier who got wounded and captured. There's a difference." Tyler pulled up the Coalition legal database. He'd been reading it for days, looking for precedent. Actually, there's a gray area. Article 42 of the Coalition Charter allows for asylum requests from any sentient being within Coalition space. It doesn't specifically exclude military combatants. That's because no one ever thought a combatant would request it. "Tyler, if you push this, you're going to start something big. Command won't ignore it." "Good. Maybe it's time someone pushed." Rachel shook her head but didn't argue further. She knew that look in his eyes. Tyler requested a meeting with Commander Holt. To his surprise, she agreed immediately. He found her in her office, surrounded by screens showing casualty reports and tactical data. "Nurse Hayes. I wondered when you'd show up." She gestured to a chair. "Let me guess. You want to do something unprecedented and probably problematic with your Thoraxian patient." "I want to let him choose his own future." Holt raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Tyler laid out his reasoning. The legal precedent for asylum. The strategic value of showing Dominion forces that surrender didn't mean torture or execution. The simple moral argument that intelligent beings deserved agency over their own lives. "You know what you're really asking for?" Holt leaned back in her chair. "You're asking me to treat an enemy combatant like a person with rights. To give him the same choices we'd give a refugee or a civilian." "Yes, ma'am." "And you understand that if I agree to this, every military commander in the Coalition is going to lose their mind? That Dominion forces might see it as weakness? That it could change the entire dynamic of this war?" Tyler met her gaze steadily. "I understand that if we don't do this, we're admitting that all our talk about Coalition values and universal rights is just propaganda. That we only believe in dignity and choice when it's convenient." Holt was quiet for a long moment. Then she tapped her desk screen, pulling up a file. "Do you know what happened on Earth during your Second World War?" "Some of it, ma'am. After that war ended, humans did something remarkable. Instead of destroying their enemies, they helped rebuild them. Fed them. Gave them medical care. Helped establish new governments. And you know what happened? Those enemies became some of Earth's strongest allies." She looked directly at Tyler. "Your species learned something the rest of us haven't. That how you treat defeated enemies determines what kind of peace you get. So you'll approve it? I'm going to do something even more radical. I'm going to forward your proposal to the Coalition Council with my full endorsement." "But Hayes." Her expression hardened. "If this goes wrong, if Vector turns out to be playing us, if this becomes a security nightmare, it's on both of us." "Understood." "Yes, ma'am." 2 days later, Tyler sat down with Vector in the small consultation room. The Thoraxian had been pacing nervously, his mandibles clicking in an agitated pattern. "You wanted to speak with me?" Vector's translated voice carried an edge of anxiety. Tyler pulled up a chair. "I need to ask you something important. You're medically cleared for discharge. Under normal circumstances, you'd be transferred to a POW facility. You'd stay there until the war ends or until a prisoner exchange is negotiated. This is expected. This is proper procedure. But there's another option." Tyler hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "You could request asylum. Stay in coalition space voluntarily. Not as a prisoner but as someone choosing to be here." Vector's forearms tensed. All his eyes focused on Tyler with startling intensity. "This is trick. Test of loyalty." "No trick. It's a real choice. You can return to Dominion space through a prisoner exchange. You can accept POW status and wait out the war. Or you can request asylum and stay here." "Why would you offer this?" "I am enemy. Because you're also a thinking being who deserves to make choices about your own life. Because keeping you locked up for years doesn't serve anyone. And because—" Tyler paused, "because maybe if one Thoraxian chooses peace, others might too." The silence stretched between them. Tyler could almost see Vector's mind working, processing concepts that didn't fit his cultural programming. "If I choose asylum, I am traitor. My name is erased. My spawning cluster disowns me. I have no home. You'd have a home here. It wouldn't be easy. Lots of people would hate you. You'd need protection, monitoring, probably years of integration counseling. But you'd be free to build a new life." Vector stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, supply ships drifted past, and beyond them, the stars stretched endlessly. 3 weeks ago I was dying on floor. I believed universe was cruel, that strength was only virtue, that mercy was weakness. He turned back to Tyler. "Then human half my size knelt in my blood and told me I was safe. This broke something in me. Or perhaps fixed something that was always broken. So what do you choose?" "I choose to understand. I choose to learn why humans fight with one hand and heal with other. I choose to see if universe can be different than what I was taught." Vector's mandibles clicked slowly. "I choose asylum." Tyler felt something loosen in his chest. Relief maybe. Or hope. "It won't be easy. Nothing worthwhile is easy. Humans taught me that too." The news hit the station like a shockwave. A Thoraxian shock trooper requesting asylum. It was unprecedented. Impossible. And it was happening. The intelligence officers wanted immediate access. Dr. Velkath filed another complaint. Security increased patrols around the overflow ward. And through it all, Vector remained calm, answering questions, cooperating fully, and slowly beginning to understand what he'd chosen. 3 days after his asylum request, something even more unexpected happened. The Dominion soldier in bed 12, the young scout who'd been captured with minor injuries, approached Tyler during morning rounds. "Nurse Tyler. I wish to submit same request as Vector." Tyler stared at him. "You want asylum too? I have watched. I have seen how you treat enemies, how you give choice, how you show respect even to those who fought against you. My people do not do this. I want to learn this." By the end of the week, 4 Dominion soldiers had requested asylum. Commander Holt looked exhausted but grimly satisfied. "You've started something," she told Tyler. "I hope you're ready for where it goes." Tyler wasn't sure he was ready. But he knew it was necessary. 6 months changed everything. Tyler stood in the expanded medical wing, watching the morning shift change. What had started as a forgotten corner with 6 beds had grown into a full facility with 40 beds, 3 operating theaters, and a staff of 27. The overflow ward didn't exist anymore. Now it was officially called the Integrated Care Center, though most people still called it Hayes Ward. Vector walked past, carrying a stack of medical data pads. He wore a translator badge and a simple uniform marking him as a civilian consultant. His job was helping human medical staff understand alien physiology and cultural practices. He was good at it, patient and thorough. "Morning, Tyler," Vector said. The translator had learned to capture the warmth in his tone now. "Morning. How's the new Thoraxian patient in Bay 7? Responding well to treatment?" He asked about asylum procedures. Vector's mandibles clicked in what Tyler had learned was amusement. "They all ask now. Word has spread in Dominion ranks. Surrender to humans, receive medical care and choice. It is becoming standard expectation." Tyler smiled. That was exactly what they'd hoped for. The real breakthrough had come 3 months ago. A Dominion strike cruiser had been badly damaged in a battle near the third moon. 70 crew members injured, 15 critical. The cruiser commander, a Thoraxian named Kelmoth, had done something no Dominion officer had ever done. He'd requested a ceasefire and asked for medical assistance. Coalition command had been stunned. The Dominion didn't ask for help. Ever. But Kelmoth had been specific. He wanted human medical protocols. He wanted the treatment that Vector and the others had received. Commander Holt had seen the opportunity immediately. She'd authorized the medical mission, sent Tyler and a full trauma team to the damaged cruiser. For 3 days, human doctors and nurses had worked alongside Dominion medical staff, treating wounded, sharing techniques, and showing what cooperation looked like. Tyler would never forget the moment when Kelmoth had approached him in the cruiser's medical bay. The commander was massive even for a Thoraxian, with scars covering half his armor plates. "You are the one," Kelmoth had said. "The one who saved Vector. I'm one of many who helped him." "No. You were first. You chose mercy when others chose to ignore." This choice has resonated through Dominion ranks. Soldiers speak of it. They wonder if humans are truly as cruel as we were taught. Kelmoth had paused. "You have given us doubt. In war, doubt is dangerous. In peace, doubt is beginning of wisdom." That mission had led to formal negotiations. Not for ending the war, not yet. The politics were still too complicated, too many competing interests on both sides. But for something smaller and more practical. Medical exchanges. Neutral zones where wounded could receive treatment regardless of their allegiance. Prisoner exchanges that included medical care guarantees. The Novo Geneva Accords, they called it. Named after the old Earth agreements that had tried to make war less brutal. It wasn't perfect. Fighting still continued. People still died. But the nature of the conflict had shifted. Soldiers on both sides knew that surrender didn't mean torture or death. It meant medical care, dignity, and eventually, choice. Tyler checked his schedule. He had a media interview in an hour. Those had become regular occurrences. Coalition Public Affairs wanted to showcase the program's success. Tyler hated the attention, but he understood its importance. Every interview, every news story, every image of humans treating former enemies with respect, it all reinforced the message. There was another way. Rachel found him in his office, reviewing patient charts. She dropped into the chair across from his desk. "You see the latest casualty reports?" she asked. "Not yet." "Bad." "Actually, no. That's the weird part. Battlefield deaths are down 40% from last year. Surrenders are up. Field commanders are reporting that Dominion forces are actually calling for medical assistance instead of fighting to the death." She shook her head in wonder. "We're still at war, but fewer people are dying. How does that even work?" Tyler thought about it. Because both sides know that wounded soldiers will be cared for. Because troops aren't desperate anymore. Because there's hope that even if you lose a battle, you won't lose your life or your dignity. It's still strange. War with manners. It's not manners. It's just remembering that the people on the other side are still people. The media interview was with a coalition-wide news network. The reporter, a human woman named Lisa Chin, asked the predictable questions. How did the program start? What made him treat Vector? What did he think about the Accords? Tyler gave his standard answers, trying to downplay his own role and emphasize the team effort. But then Lisa asked something different. There are critics who say this program makes the coalition look weak. That showing mercy to enemies encourages them to keep fighting because they know we won't retaliate harshly. What do you say to that? Tyler thought carefully before answering. I'd say they have it backwards. When you treat prisoners brutally, you force the other side to fight desperately because surrender isn't an option. You create a situation where every battle is to the death. But when you show that surrender means safety, dignity, and fair treatment, you give people a reason to stop fighting. You give commanders a reason to negotiate instead of sacrificing their troops in hopeless battles. So mercy is strategic? Mercy is human. The strategy is just a side benefit. The interview went viral. Tyler's face appeared on screens across coalition space and somehow in Dominion territory too. Vector told him that the broadcast had been shared through underground networks, passed from soldier to soldier, becoming something like proof that humans were different. A week later, another breakthrough. A Dominion commander requested a formal meeting. Not about medical exchanges this time, but about possible ceasefire negotiations in the disputed border zones. It wasn't peace, not yet. But it was conversation, which was more than they'd had in 15 years of war. Commander Holt called Tyler to her office. She looked tired but satisfied. You know the Coalition Council is proposing you for the Medical Star of Valor? She said. I heard. I don't want it. Too bad. You're getting it. But here's the thing, Hayes. I want you to bring Vector and your entire ward staff to the ceremony. All of them. The humans, the aliens, the asylum seekers, everyone. Why? Because this isn't about one human nurse doing something heroic. It's about showing what's possible when we choose to be better than our worst impulses. When we remember that even in war, we don't have to abandon our humanity. She smiled slightly. Or whatever the alien equivalent of humanity is. The ceremony was held on the main station concourse. Hundreds attended. Coalition officials, military officers, medical staff, and civilians. Tyler stood on the stage, uncomfortable in his dress uniform, while Admiral Devon Reeves read the citation. But the moment that mattered came after, when Vector stepped forward to speak. The crowd grew quiet. Many had never heard a Thoraxian speak publicly before. I am Vector. 6 months ago, I was dying on floor of hospital station. I believed I would die alone, that this was proper, that universe was cruel place where only strong survived. His translated words echoed through the concourse. Then human named Tyler Hayes knelt in my blood and said words I never expected to hear. You're safe now. These 3 words changed everything. Vector turned to look at Tyler. Humans have taught me that strength is not only ability to destroy. That true warriors protect life, not just take it. That mercy is not weakness but highest form of courage. If species as young as humanity can understand this, perhaps rest of us can learn. The applause started slowly then built. Tyler saw tears on some faces. Saw hope. Saw possibility. After the ceremony, Tyler returned to his ward. There were patients to check on, medications to administer, wounds to treat. The work never stopped. But it felt different now. It felt like building something instead of just fighting against something. Little Mira, the refugee girl who'd been in the ward 6 months ago, had been moved to civilian housing. But she visited regularly. She found Tyler in Bay 3 treating a new Dominion arrival. Nurse Tyler? I wrote something for school. About what I want to be when I grow up. Yeah. What's that? I want to be like you. I want to help people even when it's hard. Even when they're supposed to be enemies. Tyler knelt down to her level. You know what? I think you'd be great at that. The war continued for another 3 years. There were still battles, still casualties, still grief and loss. But the trajectory had changed. The Novo Geneva Accords expanded. More neutral medical zones were established. Prisoner exchanges became routine. Dialogue between coalition and Dominion leadership increased. And through it all, Tyler's ward kept running. Kept treating everyone who came through the doors. Kept proving day after day that there was another way. Historians would later mark that moment, when Tyler whispered "You're safe now" to a dying enemy soldier, as the beginning of the long peace. Not because it ended the war immediately, but because it reminded everyone involved that they were fighting other living beings, not faceless monsters. That even in the darkest times, compassion was possible. That small acts of mercy could ripple outward, changing hearts, changing minds, changing the course of history itself. And that sometimes, the bravest thing a person could do was simply choose to help someone who needed it, regardless of what uniform they wore or what species they belonged to. Because in the end, healing was always more powerful than hurting. Always.